Good evening to all of you who are joining us. I think we have 13 or so watching now, and so we're going to continue to give those who may would want to join us some opportunity to do that. And as we've been doing every week, we'd like to start with an emphasis on prayer. We believe that's a big deal as followers of Jesus Christ, and certainly as a faith family here at FBC. And so if you have any prayer concerns that you would like to share with us, whether you'd like us to pray over those concerns this evening during our time together, or you would like us as a staff to be able to pray through those, we would love to be able to join you in doing that. And so if you have those, feel free to share those prayer concerns with us. And as we're giving you some time to do that, we want to encourage you. Maybe you're connecting with us this evening for the first time, whether that's via the live stream or maybe just getting familiar with FBC in general for the first time. We would encourage you, if that is you, please be sure to connect with us. And really the easiest way that you can do that is to simply just text your name to the number that you see on your screen. It's 256-371-4610. 256-371-4610. And that will allow us to be able to simply respond to you and give you just a small little online card to fill out so that we can know how we best can minister to you to the needs that you possibly may have in your life. I'm joined again by Pastor Drew. He was a little bit busy last week, pulling off a little, what was it you were doing last week?
we had graduation. We have to give a huge shout out to Daniel for helping me make that live stream possible. And Wednesday night, Ms. Tinker kind of let me throw together a fireworks show for the seniors, so they came and did practice and cut the lights off. It's like 4th of July out there, so good times.
Well, and I know you guys, I've heard tremendous comments on how thankful the parents of the seniors were for all the hard work that our local school administrators, everybody have put into that. So Glencoe's a special place for a reason. It really is. You guys really impressed. And, we actually will have another person sitting in this chair, so we're not. Some of you know how OCD I am with things. And so we don't just have an empty place right here for no reason. Andrew will be joining us hopefully within the next 15 minutes or so. And so we wanted him to just be able to step in. We're trying to take care of him. We really are. We want him to be able to just come in smoothly, step right into the conversation. But we do, though, encourage you, again, if you have any prayer concerns, let us know about those. I'm trying to watch, and I don't see any of those. And so as we're waiting to give you some time to give those other folks time to get on, we do want to encourage you, as we do every Wednesday night, to remember our prayer ministry here at FBC Glencoe. Now, when we say that, it doesn't mean that we only want people who are in a part of this ministry praying. This is our ministry here at the church that helps keep prayer as a priority before our people. As a pastor, that's my heart. And really the people who are part of this team, they have a passion and a heart for praying. And they're just helping me and helping our staff make sure we communicate the need for praying on a very regular and consistent basis. And so if you would like to be a part of that ministry, you can touch base with us. They're always working and doing some things. They're going to be having a small group praying specifically tomorrow for our regathering coming up this coming Sunday. And they're always doing things like our In Your Closet prayer guide. That's one example that we talk about often with our prayer ministry. And you can find that if you're interested simply by going to our website, fbcglencoe.com. Click on the Grow tab. You can click on prayer. And then you can click on the most recent prayer guide. And there are always an amazing amount of resources that are in that prayer guide that will encourage you in your daily prayer life. And then also, we're asking our people to, every day at 1 p.m., join other people as a part of this FBC Faith family in praying. Just a brief prayer. Not asking you to take 30 minutes or an hour, which that would be great, but at least briefly to join us at 1 p.m. every day, praying for our church, praying for our community, certainly praying for our country, and praying for one person in your life that God would have you connect with so that you can share the gospel. We believe that the gospel is the answer to a world that is hurting and seemingly hopeless. And we want to help us communicate that good news message with others as well. And then also one other thing that we would ask you to do, and this is really the heart of our prayer ministry and myself as we're heading into our regathering in person on Sunday, I would encourage you that tomorrow at 10:30 a.m., regardless of where you may be, whatever you're doing, if you could just pause for just a moment or two and to join our prayer ministry and hopefully others in this faith family as well, just praying for God's grace and His favor to be on us as we seek to regather or at least offer that regathering in person again this coming Sunday. And so if you would do that, that would be a tremendous blessing to your faith family. All right, so we have been joined by the one and the only, the man, the myth, and the legend. What do you have to say for yourself? He's the pastor of stage administration. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are y'all?
If you don't, Andrew, you work in Huntsville?
Can y'all hear me?
We can. So, Andrew,
Okay,
you
cool.
work in Huntsville, right?
Okay, so the company I work for, we're based out of Springville. I do a lot of work in Huntsville. Today I was in Tuscaloosa. So
Daniel,
I've been here the whole time, though. I don't know what y'all are talking about. I just showed up.
But anyway, so we're glad that you made it, brother.
Yeah.
We're glad that you made it. And well, we're gonna go ahead and just share briefly about Sunday morning, because I know even though we've communicated what's taking place Sunday, I know there are probably still questions. And if you guys hear me leave out anything that you think that the folks would want to know, please just insert that. So this coming Sunday, we are planning on offering our in-person gatherings for the first time in a long time. It's been since March 15th, that we have joined together in person as a congregation. Now, here's the thing about the local church in the New Testament. It was a called-out assembly of people, physical presence of people. And obviously, we have done everything we can to honor the guidelines and recommendations by those who know a lot more than we do about the COVID virus, and also just to show genuine concern for our community, for our faith family and others in this pandemic. Well, we've been given permission to be able to maybe regather again. And so we're going to do that. It's going to look a lot different than what it did before COVID-19. So what we're going to do is when you come up on Sunday morning, if you are one of the people who feel like you would like to start regathering in person again with us, then you'll just park in hopefully the front parking lot or the side parking lot, and you'll be able to enter either the handicap entrance, which is by the kids check-in and the fellowship hall entrance, or the main two entrances that come into the sanctuary from the main lobby area. Those are the only two entrance and exit points that we're really asking folks to use, so that we can make sure we monitor everything well and make sure we're limiting what areas of the facility are possibly have germs and stuff like that. And so that'll be one thing that we'll ask you to do. When you come in, you will be able to have at your access a hand sanitizer, mask if you would want to wear one. We're not requiring that, but we are encouraging you that if you're comfortable wearing a mask, then we would encourage you to bring the mask that you've been wearing, that you're comfortable wearing, or we will have those available. We'll even have gloves available if you so choose to wear those as well. When you enter the sanctuary, you will notice that there will be every other pew blocked off where no one can sit on, and then on the pews that are open for people to sit on, we're asking every family unit, and that means if you're a teenager or a child, then they'll have to sit with the parent or the guardian. The family units sit together, and the individuals, of course, and those will be placed in seating at least 6 feet apart so that we can make sure we social distance according to the measures and the recommendations that have been given to us. We also are going to do our best to record just a quick video to kind of give you a visualization of how that'll look like, and we'll try to have that up hopefully at some point by the end of the day tomorrow. So if you have any questions about those concerns that you may have leading into Sunday, you can let us know. And we're going to be disinfecting the entire sanctuary and essentially most all of our facility before we meet on Sunday. And it's going to be disinfected very well also. So we're going to take every precaution that we can to be able to do that. Join together again at 10:45 a.m. We ask you to get here early enough where we don't have to get too congested entering in. We're going to require the social distancing there. And then also after the service as we exit, we will require social distancing at that point as well. We're going to have no-touch thermometer readings for the folks that come in just to make sure we're not having a fever, things like that could put other people at risk as you come in. So those are some of the precautions that we are taking. if you're one of the people who, for whatever reason, maybe it's an underlying health issue, maybe just a concern with you being in the age bracket that they're really encouraging not to be around others right now, then we want you to know that we empower you to do what you feel is best for your own personal health. We're not going to be thinking any less of you for doing that. We want you to do what you feel most comfortable doing. But as we've been sharing, if your reason is just because you've gotten comfortable by just waking up and doing that, then again, please remember that the idea of the local church is to gather physically in person when possible and when able. That's the embodiment of the New Testament church. But if you're that person who have those genuine concerns, then know that we love you. We're going to keep praying for you, and we're going to remain committed to doing our online resources and as much as we possibly can to bless and administer to you during this time. We're going to open in prayer now, and a couple of specific concerns that we want to pray for the Wagner family and the Henson family. They're obviously affected with Miss Berman not feeling well. We also want to continue to pray for those who've been recovering in our faith family. We got Mike Langford, Larry Wells recovering from his procedure. We have some other needs in our faith family that are just unspoken, and so we're going to pray over those. I haven't seen any specifically outside of the encouragement, of course, to pray for the Wagners and the Hensons. You guys seen any? Okay, y'all don't have yours, so you got your phone. Okay, all right. Daniel, have you noticed any? Okay, all right. Well, we're going to let Andrew open us in prayer, and then at the end of our time together, we'll let Pastor Drew close us out. So if you would just pray that God would show grace to these concerns and also to our time in His Word.
Father, I thank you for everything you've done, everything you're doing, everything you're going to do. I just want to ask for your presence for all of these situations here, and ask for your grace. And I want to ask that you bless this time with us together, that, like every week we've been doing this, that they wouldn't hear what me and Andrew have to say, but they want to hear what your Word has to say, and that's what it should be, and that's what I want to highlight here tonight, Lord. Father, again, just be with everyone in all of these situations that have been going on, all the unspokens, everything that's going on. You know what needs to be done. We just ask that your perfect will be done in those situations, Father. And I just pray that you bless us tonight and further on this week, and as we gather back together, keep us all safe, keep us all wise, and to use discernment with everything. But it's also keep us excited about meeting together again, Father. I pray this in Jesus' name.
Great prayer. Thank you. Okay, so last week we kind of took a break from our question and answer, and we simply dove into the context and really some of the implications of the favorite verses that some of you had submitted to us the previous Monday leading into that. Last week we were able to talk about Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 and 7, 1 Peter 5 and 7, John chapter 14 and verse 19, and tied that into chapter 16 and verse 33. We look at Romans chapter 12 and verse 12, Philippians chapter 4 and verse 19, and then this evening most of our time will be spent in the book of Psalms, the book of the Psalms. So if you're following along in your physical copy or maybe your electronic copy of the Word, if you want to go to the Psalms, and the first Psalm that we're going to be in is Psalm 30. Psalm 30, and this was submitted to us by Marilyn Yarbrough. Psalm 30 and verse 5. Psalm 30 and verse 5. And Pastor Drew, are you there? So we're going to let Pastor Drew read that, and if you want to kick us off with some thoughts, and then all of us will kind of chime in on this verse, and feel free to do that as you're following along at home. If you want to chime in, insert something, we'd love to hear from you. So Pastor Drew, if you don't mind.
Actually, I'm going to back up and start in 4, just to kind of give a little more context. So Psalm 30, verse 4. Sing praises to the Lord, O you his saints, and give thanks to his holy name. For his anger is but for a moment, and his favor is for a lifetime. Weeping may tarry for the night, but joy comes in the morning. And so, to me, really thinking about, a psalm from David, and what he's trying to say through this, and what I pull out of it is just that, hey, I'm going through a hard time, and I'm going through a mess right now, and it may be real bad, even to the point of weeping. Like when you weep, like, hey, you are really in an emotional point. There are tears coming out of your eyes, either joyful tears or sad tears. And so, but thinking of that and saying that, hey, the weeping, and it may go for the night, but we understand the sun is coming up. We understand that, hey, there is going to be a new day. There is going to be a new morning. And joy comes in that morning. And so, I mean, that's the, what I really pull out of that, so even through these bad times, if you go back to verse 4, sing praises to the Lord, O you his saints. And there's a lot of, and Donnie's going to seminary, so I will trust him more on this, but I mean, to me, what stands out about 4 is where he says, "Oh, you, his saints," giving ownership to the people that, hey, we are God's saints. And so, I mean, there is joy in that, no matter what we're going through, we are a saint for the Lord. Now, sometimes we may not act like saints, and that's okay, but that's something we're striving to do. So that's really what stands out to me.
Awesome, bro. Thank you for that. Andrew, I'm going to let you go ahead. They've heard me talk a lot, so let you guys talk first.
I like hearing you talk, don't you?
Oh,
I've
no.
said that before, but it's true.
You go ahead.
Let me tell you a story. So, Drew, I think I've told you this story. This isn't a story of mine, but so for everyone listening, for Donnie, if you haven't heard this before, there's this guy, and he's having some issues with his health. So he goes to the doctor, and he has some tests done because he's worried and stuff. So he does the test. He goes back home, and the doctor calls him about a week later. The doctor says, "Okay, I have some bad news and some really bad news." And the man says, well, Doc, what's the bad news? And the doctor said, "You only have 24 hours to live." And the guy says, "What's the really bad news?" And the doctor says, "I should have told you this yesterday." That,
You guys laugh, at least do an emoji laugh so that we can make
So,
Andrew feel better about
this is not my joke, so if it flops, then whatever. Weeping may save or not. Okay, so this guy, he's in it. Okay, and this is not a true story. None of that ever happened. But, it seems like in this world right now, bad news just keeps turning into worse news. That's the point of the joke. But there is joy in the morning. Here's some good news right here. That no matter what bad news we are going on in here, there is joy in the morning. And we know what that joy in the morning is later in the Bible, where Jesus comes and dies for our sins and rises from the dead. So weeping and our sorrows doesn't have the final word. Jesus has the final word. Hope has the final word. Life has the final word if you're in Christ. And I try to figure out how every Bible verse can point us to Christ, because ultimately I think that's what the Bible's about.
Sure.
And that's really how that's what connects me to the gospel in Psalms.
Yeah. And when it comes to this verse, one thing that I think we may skim over in this verse is the first part, "for his anger
Yeah.
is but for a moment." And we probably really skim past that fairly quickly. We can't act as though his righteous anger is not a thing, because we know that God does possess righteous anger towards sin. And it's fully in his righteousness. It's perfect anger, if there is such a thing. God possesses that righteous anger. But notice that it is only for a moment. So even though we understand that there is a righteous anger towards sin and the curse of sin and the consequence of sin, it's still tempered by, as the verse says, by his favor, his merciful and gracious favor toward us. And so therefore, in the grand scheme of things, the anger is but just simply for a moment. And we can give thanks, like you talked about, and you insinuated, we can give thanks that though the weeping may come, and there has been a lot of weeping for many of you, maybe some of us, during these last few weeks. I know that I've wept some because I've missed my church people. And, I get to see Daniel in the Lion's Den and these guys and a few more on Sundays. So there's been this sense of weeping, but our Jesus journey is filled with joy. And the joy that returns and the joy that remains. And as Andrew said, I think he's right, and I know Drew would agree that this psalm, as with all the scriptures, point us to the joy that is found in Jesus Christ.
Right, and I mean, too, when you just talk about, that his anger lasts just for a moment, and you said it, very well and eloquently, that, God's, anger is perfect, but we truly understand that, God's wrath is because of the sin in the world. But all of that wrath from Genesis all the way to the cross had to happen for us to have a relationship with Him. So, the great thing is, and where our joy can come in the morning, that, hey, no matter what I'm going through, and this is not just a church answer, no matter what I'm going through, as long as I have Jesus, God's wrath is not pouring down on me. God is not pouring more on me because I've done something wrong. Because when we accept Jesus, He sees His Son in us. Just like the Passover in Exodus, Jesus' blood covers our door frame. And so the wrath of God passes over from us. And so we know that, yes, this may be for a moment, and it may be for a year, and it may be your entire life. But when Jesus comes back, we understand that that is going to be our joyful moment, that when we get to stand with Him forever and ever and ever.
Preach it, brother. I like it. Okay, well, we got to move on. But that's a wonderful.
Yes.
So, Miss Marilyn, thank you so much for submitting that favorite verse to us. Now we're moving on to one of my brother Barry's. This is, I think, from Barry Baker, if I'm not mistaken. Psalm 46 and verse 10. Psalm 46 and verse 10. And I think most of us who are tuning in this evening will recognize this verse. It maybe if you're new to the whole church thing or Bible thing, you might not know this, and that's okay, because we welcome you into the conversation. So this will be an encouragement to you if that is you as well. But Psalm 46 and verse 10. Andrew, are you where you can read that one too? Yeah, verse 10. You got to read this in your Morgan Freeman or James Earl Jones voice. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. You go ahead.
Psalm 46:10 says, "Stop your fighting and know that I am God, exalted among the nations, exalted on the earth."
And what version is that?
I've got the Christian Standard
The
Bible
Christian
version.
Standard. Okay, that's the Southern Baptist version for those of you at home. The ESV reads a little bit. You got the ESV?
I do. Did you get that on Babylon, dude?
No, this is this is legit.
No, it's legit. Drew, read for us because there's a little different wording at the first of that verse, I think, in the ESV.
Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth.
And the reason one of the reasons I asked Drew to do that for us is both of the versions they were reading from, although they were different and stated it a little bit differently, both bore the context of verse 9 in a very proper and adequate manner to be faithful to the text. And so sometimes we get into the battles of my version's better than your version, or this version's better than that version.
Kind of like Travis did when he made fun of me for my Bible.
Well, he was joking, I think. The key is...
I just thought you got it
to
from
make
that
sure
website.
that it honors the text. And that's the key. It honors the context of the text. And I've told many people that I think we have too many Bible version battles and worship wars when we need to be a lot more serious about reaching people for Jesus.
Well,
Amen.
it's like what me and you talked about, this morning when we called. It's as long as we agree on the mission that, hey, that we are taking the life-changing news of Jesus Christ to the world, the smaller battles, we are going to have to learn how to agree to disagree.
And that's true.
And I mean, that's what, I think that's why you see so many denominations and you see so many different churches, because I don't think it's that they didn't agree on Jesus. Some maybe, I'm not saying but I think a lot of it was the smaller stuff, and they let that smaller stuff take their mind from the mission. And we have to be mission-minded and understanding is what we are doing going to support that, going to further the mission. We should do that in the church. We should do that in our businesses. We should do that in schools. Is what we're doing going to push things forward? And so we see that in the life of Jesus. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and you can really even see it in verse 10 right here, in understanding that, be still, which to me means just stop. Just for whatever you're doing, whatever's going on, whatever the mess, whatever the drama, stop and take a moment. And remember that I am God. So that's God speaking, saying, remember who's in control. And then he goes on to say, hey, I'm going to be exalted, which what exalted means. I'm going to be glorified. It's going to be about me. I'm going to get the glory out of this. Not you, not anybody else. At the end of this, I will be exalted, amongst the nations, and I will be exalted in the earth. And there is a freeing peace in that God who will be exalted, who will every knee shall bow and every tongue will confess that He is Lord. That God has a relationship with us. He intimately knows us, and that's exciting about that. And I think to me, and Donnie, I might have interpreted that, but to me, that's what verse 10 means.
But no, and what you added is tremendous insight. And leading into this verse, and I think that SB, I think, was trying to reflect some of the implications of verse 9 into that verse.
Yeah.
But as Drew said, this idea of being still, when I read that too, whether it's an outward turmoil or warring, outside of us, and we all know that these last few weeks there's been a lot of war within. There's been it's been really, and I don't know if it's true of all of you, and if you're watching and this is true of you, maybe you can do us one of the hand things, or I don't know what the emojis are. But if this is you can let us know. But for me, it's been difficult at times for me to calm my spirit, to let my spirit be still. There's been a lot of anxiety. There's been a lot of I know some of the pastors have been sharing, and it's not just for pity or anything else like that. The little image that has like 7 or 8 different ideas or inputs or opinions of church people concerning regathering, and that has caused a great deal of inner turmoil for a lot of pastors. And so, Andrew, when it comes to being still, what would you speak into that as far as how maybe that resonates with you? Be still, know that I am God.
Right. So this Psalms, we kind of joked about this last week. This is the Israelite songbook, right?
Yeah. We were supposed to sing. You were supposed to sing that.
Yeah.
Drew, I think Drew can actually sing, though. See, I can't. I can't. I can sing, but not well. Andrew, can you sing?
Not well.
Go ahead and sing this. No, I'm just kidding.
Everyone will tune out real quick. And this verse, let me first say that God's word on its own is perfect. It is completely good.
Amen.
But there's some Bible verses that make me think of songs that I listen to, because these songs are based from these Bible verses. And there's this song I listen to, and he says in the chorus, God says, just trust in my plan and let me be who I am. And that's what he's saying. He's saying, just chill out. I got this. Stop your fighting. And, it goes back to the context from verse 9. He makes war cease throughout the earth. So whatever's going on, whether you're fighting with other people, whether it's about which Bible is the best, whether it's about things like post-tribulation and pre-tribulation raptures, just things that aren't completely essential to faith, stop your fighting, and we need to be mission-minded, like Drew said. I'm just copying him right now.
It's going to be the new FBC t-shirt next time. Mission-minded.
Mission-minded.
Yes. I'm okay with it.
But that's what I would encourage you with here, that whatever you're worrying about, the Word tells us that God hasn't given us a spirit of worry or fear when we accept Christ. So stop that. Be still. Know that He's God, and that if you'll let Him, that all things will work out together for good, which we'll get into that if we talk about your favorite Bible verses later. Donnie, I don't know if we'll have time, but
I don't think that
probably won't.
That's okay. And really, Barry picked a verse that's just from an amazing chapter as a whole.
Yeah.
And Drew pointed to the importance of when God says to us to be still, He didn't make sure that the eyes of our hearts is turned toward Him. Be still and know that I am God. And so this is a song, as Andrew reminded us, it's a song of reflection for those moments when we're really struggling to keep our inner spirit still, or maybe there is chaos outside of us, regardless of what the context may be in your life. But notice how earlier in that chapter, we're reminded of who this God is and what this God does. This is the God who, in verse 1, we're told He is our refuge and our strength. He's our very present help in trouble. Therefore, because of those truths, we will not fear though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, and though the mountains tremble at its swelling. And then there's the notation, Selah. That was just their word of refrain. Almost like, hey, take a deep breath from this song, this part of the song you just sung, and breathe in the truths. Just gravitate, let those truths gravitate through you and understand, reflect on what you just learned. And then we find verse 10 just a few verses later. Be still and know that he is God. Spurgeon, and a lot of times pastors always quote this Charles Spurgeon guy. And one of the reasons is he had some really good, he was a wonderful Bible teacher. He shares this, and I'll share this, and then we're going to look at Psalm 121 next. So if you guys want to be making your way there. But he says, acknowledge that Jehovah is God. You who feel the terrors of his wrath, adore him and him only. You who partake in the protection of his grace. Since none can worthily proclaim his nature, let expressive silence muse his praise. The boast of the ungodly and the timorous forebodings, and sometimes he gets a little wordy, of the saints should certainly be hushed by a sight of what the Lord has done. And notice again, be still and know that I am God. So we calm our spirits and we reflect on who God is and the God that is sovereign over all of creation. And I think Psalm 121 really continues to build on this, the thought of the song of chapter 46 or Psalm 46. And so we'll let Pastor Drew, I think it's the whole psalm, and it's not too terribly long. So if you don't mind reading Psalm 121.
Yeah. Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade on your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil, and he will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore.
And thank you. I thank you, Miss Jennifer Wells, for submitting that favorite verse. Andrew, we're going to let you start on that, and then we'll toss it back to Drew. But Andrew, what do you have there is maybe what the Lord has spoken to you through that verse, or that chapter, excuse me.
Here, I don't want to take this out of what it actually means. Some people will look at this and say that, okay, I can go and set my arm on fire and it's not going to burn me. That's not what this means. But what he is talking about is spiritually your soul. I mean, yeah, physically things can still harm you, yes. But the Lord's going to protect you through all of that. And this is kind of weird to think about, but when you're in the presence, when the will of God completely, that's the safest place you can be. We talked about this last week because you can literally die, and when you're in Christ and the will of God, you go to heaven. So that's what I see from this verse about the Lord being our protector. And the psalmist here, I'm not sure who it is because it doesn't say, but he talks about the Lord being the protector, not some other person, not his value system, not the mountains and the earth, not his house, not some politician. He's talking about the Lord, God, is his protector. And that's the way that we kind of need to look at our lives too. Sometimes we do get caught up and given other things that are man-made a little bit more glory than we do the one that created them all in the first place. But this psalm really reminds us to, hey, this is where blessings come from.
Yeah. And so, Pastor Drew, if there's one word that maybe came to you when you read through that, a word that would just speak of really what this psalm resonates to you, what would one word be?
Slumber. Yeah. And here's why. Because I think it's really important, verses, 3 and 4 right there. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. Because I think a lot of times as people and as Christians, when we are going through a trial, a tribulation, when we're going through a problem, we look up to heaven and we say, God, do you see me? I don't know if y'all have ever done that, but, hey, God, do you see what I'm going through? Do you see all this right here? And sometimes we think, well, maybe, and I've heard this from people, I don't want to go to God with my problems because he's got other things, going on. He's got other stuff to do. But that's not what Psalm 21 tells us. And he says, he won't let your foot be moved. And we think about that, and he will not slumber. He will not sleep. That God is not up there taking a day off. It's 24/7, 365. He is on the throne and he is in control. And there is peace in that because that's where my help comes from. My help comes from the one who doesn't sleep, who does see this. He sees where I was coming from. He sees where I'm at. And Andrew, he sees into the future. He sees, hey, this is how this is going to play out.
Yeah.
And then it goes on and, it says, the sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. And if we think about how big the sun is and all the sunlight that we get, and we think about how, big the moon is, which is actually not moonlight, it's the sun reflection. But anyways, science teacher. But when we think about that God is so big and so in control that he can shade us from the sun and the moon. And so, y'all are talking about songs, and this is, the Israelite playbook or playlist right here, whatever y'all want to call it. It's on Spotify, whatever you want to do. Yeah, Godify, my bad. But anyways, but when I think about this, I think about that song, and I heard it the other day, and this is God working, because Donnie really just told me these verses right before we got on stage.
Yeah, he didn't have much time to prepare. That was my fault.
No, but I'm not mad about that, but it's just funny how this works out, because I was leaving the gym the other day, and the song came on, even the sparrow. I don't know who sings it. Don't look at me like that, Andrew. Don't judge my life. But the verse in the song says, if he can hold the world, he can hold this moment. And I think truly that's what this psalm is embodying, that where does my help come from? Where in my time of trouble, where am I looking to? I'm looking to the God that if he can physically breathe out stars out of his mouth, like we learn in Isaiah, he can hold this moment. Yeah. And so no matter what it is, and I think that gives us freedom. I think about Emery Kate. When we go walk in the neighborhood, she is starting to get to the point where she wants to go, and she doesn't want to be right by mom and dad. And when she does that, she will go so far, and then she realizes, I'm not around anymore. You know what I mean? And so she looks back for me and Gina, and when she looks back and she sees us, she's like, oh, hey, there's mom and dad. I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay. And I think that's something that we need to be reminded of, in our life, that, hey, even when we look up and we look around like, oh, hang on, where is God? He sees us, he knows us, and he's there. Yeah. That was a really long way to get to the answer to that question, and I apologize for that. But.
No, it was terrific. And Miss Jennifer, obviously, you guys have been walking through a lot the last few weeks with your recovery, and Brother Larry's present recovery, and of course your continued recovery. And to me, the word is assurance. When we're walking through, like what Drew talked about, and we're dealing with all those moments, this song gives us assurance. This is a song that we can sing, and this was often sung by pilgrims who were making their way to Jerusalem, and so they had in their minds not only probably past trials, but maybe present trials, but their whole purpose was going to Jerusalem in order to worship God. And so he says, where does my help come from? And as Drew said, my help comes from the Lord. But then he qualifies who the Lord is. He is the God who created everything good that we see. And you go back to Genesis and you can find the creation accounts. We don't have to rehash that. And I think most of you that have joined us this evening, you get that. You understand that and you would agree with that. So we are able, based on who God is, based on what God is able to do, we are able to find the assurance of the help that we need in Him, regardless of what we're walking through. And again, we have all been through a lot of things the last few weeks that were very unexpected, from kids in school and seniors having to graduate a very different way and wondering if there's going to even be a graduation, to teachers and administrators and everybody having to adjust their lives to minister to their kids and to teach their kids. And every person has been affected in some way by this.
Yeah.
But we can lift our eyes to the one who gives us the help that we stand in need of, knowing that He is the one who is sovereign over all of creation, and that there is nothing we could walk through that is beyond the reach of His power. His influence. And even as Drew said, the spoken word or command of God. And we can rest our hope in that. The next place we're going to go is Isaiah 26. Well, we've got one more psalm, but we're going to do Isaiah 26. We're going to do Isaiah 26, and we'll just catch the other psalm maybe next week. We don't have time this evening, but I think we may have time. We'll see how that goes. So Isaiah 26, verses 3 and 4. Who read the last one? Drew? Okay. Andrew, okay. I'm going to let you read this one again, then. And so that's Isaiah 26, verses 3 and 4. This is from my lady, Miss Rachel. And so we have to do this evening just because I want to make her proud of me. Because I love her. So you go ahead, Isaiah chapter 26.
I'm just gonna keep on the same way we can go. I'm gonna go back to verse 1 because to understand what 3 and 4 are saying, you've got to know what verse 1 is. On that day, this song will be sung in the land of Judah. We have a strong city. Salvation is established as walls and ramparts. Open the gates so a righteous nation can come in, one that remains faithful. You will keep the mind that is dependent on you in perfect peace, for it is trusting in you. Trust in the Lord forever, because in the Lord Himself is an everlasting rock.
Amen. So these two verses, if we choose 3 and 4, which are the verses that my lady shared with us as her favorite verses, and these have become her life verses. She shares this often with her business and those who are involved in her business, and these verses have really been instrumental in ministering to her during some difficult moments of her life. Now, we know that there's what would be called a forward-looking focus with these verses, pointing Israel to her future hope, and in Christ, really, I think we would agree, pointing all of us to our future hope in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Drew, if you would like to dig into some of the implications here, and maybe, I know you've heard this verse before, you've read and studied this verse before, so maybe how God has spoken to you through this verse.
I think, the word, you got me stuck on that one word thing from last verse, but trust. Trust kind of comes out to me. And I think there's a real simple command, trust in the Lord forever, not trust in the Lord on Sundays or trust in the Lord when times get tough, but trust in the Lord forever. And to me, that's truly what Christians are doing, is that we are trusting in Jesus, our Lord. Hey, here's our eternity. We don't have a backup policy. There's no insurance policy. Hey, our chips we're all in, and saying, hey, we believe, compared to what everybody else wants to tell us, that by giving our heart to you, we will spend forever with you. And so that's the thing, trust in the Lord forever. If I just read those two verses, that's what stands out to me. And then you go on, in the rest of verse 4, we trust in Him forever, for He is an everlasting rock. That's God. For God is an everlasting rock. He's not going to be moved. He's not going to be shaken. Mm-hmm. We can bank on that trust, that what we're putting our trust in, will not be moved.
Mm-hmm. And somebody's watching this evening, and it's not just my Rachel that needed to maybe be reminded of the truth of this verse, even as I did. But I think somebody's watching this evening, and they needed to hear exactly what you shared. You can trust in the Lord. And Andrew, maybe you'd like to speak into some of that, or maybe there's a little bit of different way that God used this in the context of speaking to you.
Right. That's pretty much the same from what Drew said. He's talking about trust, and yes, we need to trust in the Lord forever. This verse also points us to what we're trusting in, an everlasting rock. And this makes me think of a parable in, I think it's Matthew, where the one guy built his house on a rock, the other guy built it on a sand, and then a storm comes, and the guy that built it on the sand, his house gets torn down. The guy that was on the rock, he's good to go. That kind of connects me back to the Gospels. But, the Lord Himself is an everlasting rock. So, like right now, me and you and Drew are sitting on the stage, pretty sure that it's not going to cave in under us, right? We trust the stage, okay, because we know that it's built on a solid foundation. And God's Word is telling us right here that He's even better than the stage. He's an even better foundation than that for us to build our life on. And when the storms come, and they will, but when we call on the name of Christ, all things change. Our perspective changes on what's going on around us, unless we're like Peter and we start looking at the storm instead of at Jesus, which I've done before. So no perfect people here. Just me. But storms will come when we call on the name of Christ. When we're trusting in that rock, we're on that solid foundation, and like Drew said, it's not going to be moved, it's not going to be shaken, it's not going to be broken by anything. So that's pretty much how that verse comes out to me in that context.
And that's terrific. And you go ahead, Drew. Do you have something? Okay.
No, I mean, listen, after that, that's how the cookie crumbles, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see y'all next week.
That's true. Yeah. The one thing that I think one part of this verse that has really been encouragement to Rachel, and I'm not trying to speak for you, honey. I know you're watching, but I know that one thing that has often she shared to me that has really encouraged her from this is the fact that you keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed, and some will read there, you will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is fixed or stayed on you. And both are just fine. Both reflect the same thing, I believe, because he trusts in you. But I really love the implications of the first part of that. You keep him in perfect peace, or you will keep him in perfect peace. One little neat tidbit about, obviously we know that the Old Testament was recorded in Hebrew and the New Testament Greek. Thank God we have our English translations to help us all out. But one neat thing that takes place here when we're told perfect peace, in the Hebrew, if you read that, it would be shalom, shalom. Now, we all know that shalom is peace. We've heard that. We've seen the Jewish movies and parts of the movies where shalom, that's their way of proclaiming peace. But shalom, shalom, when repetition was used in the Hebrew Bible, it was a way of placing great emphasis on something, like certainty on something. And so if you read that, it would be, you keep him in shalom, shalom. You keep a person in absolute peace. That there's no doubt that there's going to be anything but peace when our mind is fixed or stayed on him and when we trust him. And that is an encouragement to me, because sometimes when I lose my peace is when I lose my focus. Mm-hmm. And I think you guys were hitting on that a little bit. But when we are able to trust in him, as Drew said, and by his grace and by the work, I think, of his Spirit within us, to keep our hearts and our minds fixed on him, then haven't we all realized that peace, that shalom, shalom, that absolute, that intense emphasis of peace that the author is placing here, then we are able to experience that. And notice that he keeps us there. He keeps us there. We're not kept in peace by our own efforts, but he keeps us there. If it was all up to my efforts, man, I'd be wigging out the next moment, and my peace would be gone. Yeah. But when we fix our eyes on him and we keep our hearts and minds focused on the Lord, then he is the one who keeps us there. Mm-hmm. It's not our own spirituality, but it's the one we're trusting in who keeps us there. We're kept there by the God who keeps the universe. And that is such an encouragement to me, no matter what I'm walking through, whether it's difficult days in ministry or just life in general. Mm-hmm. We can keep our hearts and our minds focused on him, and he's going to keep us in that perfect peace, that shalom, shalom, that peace that I think would even foreshadow the peace that we talked about last night, the peace that surpasses understanding in Philippians chapter 4. Yeah. And we can rest in that, and we can trust in that peace that he makes possible. And I thank God for that. I thank God for the times when Rachel has reminded me of the truths of this verse when I needed it as well. Guys, do you have anything else to share on that passage before we let Pastor Drew close us out in just a few moments? But do you got anything else to share, to reflect on in that passage, or maybe something else that you'd like to share that maybe God has placed on your heart?
Drew, I'll let you go first.
I mean, like I said, I think we covered it pretty good. When we close up, I'll tell everybody a little bit more about Sunday and what Sunday night's going to look like. Absolutely. And go from there. So, Andrew, I'll kick it back.
Would you got anything, brother, that maybe God has spoken to you just to share with folks before we wrap up?
Yeah. I knew we were doing Psalms tonight, which made me, we joked about Israel's playlist. So if y'all want, church family of First Baptist Church Glencoe, y'all put in the comments if y'all want me to make y'all a playlist coming up for us to listen to, and it will be our playlist. Or don't. That's also fun. Drew knows what you're getting into.
We already have a student one. It's on Spotify.
We do. Y'all go follow our Spotify account with 614 students. No, in all seriousness, I really love the Word of God. I really do.
Amen. We've seen your love for the Lord and for the Word growing, so we're so thankful for that. And Pastor Drew, he's doing an outstanding job with student ministry. It's been a very unique time.
Yeah.
I would say for your ministry.
Oh yeah, I mean when I'm used to seeing kids, every day, and I haven't seen them, and I saw some at graduation, a little bit here and there, but it's not normal. So it's weird. it's a weird time. I talked to some other youth ministers, and they kind of said the same thing. It's like, what do you do? Like you're used to, you love the kids, you see the kids. I tell them all the time, like in school, I got the best job in the world because I feel like I'm a teenager. All the time. Like they keep me young. And so, like that's exciting. And getting to come back on Sunday night is exciting. And I understand, maybe some parents don't want kids to come yet. I get that. If you've got young kids at home or, people with pre-existing health conditions at home, I get that. I think we're going to live stream it, but we're still working that out. I'm not going to promise that one yet. But if you want to come with your student, or you are more than welcome to come Sunday night at 6:00 to our first worship service in here. This is where we're going to be for at least probably the summer. I think that's a safe bet before we get to move back upstairs. And I hope that we never go back upstairs. That we outgrow it, not just with the social distancing. And here's my heart on that. I want as many kids here as I can get because I know that's just one more kid who gets to hear about Jesus. And I kind of wish we talked about that a little bit, today. And so our first series is going to be called Transformed. And we're going to look at different people in the Bible and different situations that God transformed. And so I'm excited about that. But I do encourage you, I'm going to be sending out messages tonight. And to the parents, if you think that we're not reaching out to your kid, check their Instagram. They are getting a message a week. Andrew can vouch for that one.
Yeah.
We send, would you say 100?
We've done a majority of the work here lately, but
oh man,
yeah. I help them snap these messages. We send out 100+ messages a week.
Yeah, and so they're getting invited. In the same way, if your kid's going through something, the only way that we'll ever know is if you tell us, hey, Coach Hall, I need to talk. And that number is a great way to get in contact if you don't have my number. Or, it's not real hard to find. You can call around and just get in contact with me. But that's what we're here for.
I'll post it on my Facebook.
As you should. It's 1-800. No, I'm just kidding. But so that's my prayer. Sunday morning, we did graduation recognition last Sunday. The ones who will be here in person, we will spend just a quick moment, and we'll call them up in front of the stage, and we'll pray over them, pray for their future, pray that God will, do what His Word says. What we heard tonight, that He will be their rock, He will be their fortress, and He will be there to block the sun and the moon from them and just guide them, in their entire lives. So the ones that are here, make sure you're here a little early. Just get with me so I know who's here. We'll call you down, and we'll pray over you, and then we will send you off into the real world, as your parents want to do. So, that's it. But that's kind of, what's going on our side of things on Sunday. So, like I said, you guys are more than welcome. You don't have to just pick one or the other. You can come Sunday morning, and they can come Sunday night, too. That's acceptable, isn't it?
You'll have to see me twice. I'll be here for both of them.
Yeah.
That may be unacceptable. and Drew, just before you pray, just know if you're watching and whoever may watch this, your staff and your leadership team, we love you guys, and we're missing you, and we are doing everything that we possibly can do to make Sunday night student worship and Sunday morning in-person worship as welcoming and as safe to you as it possibly can be.
Yeah.
And so again, if there's a hesitation because of safety concerns, just in general, then know that we're doing everything that we can do. And we're going to be disinfecting the sanctuary Sunday afternoon after everybody leaves, so that the students, when they come, and this is why the students, when they come back that evening, it has all been disinfected as well. So we're taking the steps that we can to make sure that the student worship experience is as safe as possible. And I'm sorry I interrupted. I just
No,
want
no, I
to
mean,
know that that's taken.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're going to do, and we'll go through the same guidelines. You know, we'll park in the front, we'll come in through the front doors, and go through that. I don't know about the thermometer. I don't know if we'll have, people to help check that. But, I'm going to say this. If you've got somebody with pre-existing health conditions at home, hopefully we do kind of work those kinks out and we can live stream this. And, so you can have, the adult worship on Sunday morning and then, the student worship on Sunday night. But the truth of the matter is, whether it's Wednesday, Sunday, Sunday night, Sunday morning, we're getting to worship Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
In person again.
in person again. You can't hug in the sanctuary if y'all want to hug outside.
Don't let us see it.
Yeah,
don't let us see it one moment if you do that.
So, but we love you guys. We're excited to see you. And, I mean, I know that it's a lot right now. If you look at our nation, there's a lot of turmoil going on right now. And I'll tell you this, Andrew says it all the time, we live in a fallen, broken world. But the truth is that we have an answer for it. And the world doesn't need justice, the world needs Jesus. And so that's what I'm going to pray for tonight. Pray for our country, not just with this COVID stuff, but with race relations and everything else. We need Jesus to work not just in our healthcare systems, but in all of us. And, if you truly want to fix that, if you want to fix racism, you got to put Jesus in it. Because if not, it's just hate. And it's just what the world is. It's always been there. You can look back in the Bible, and with the Hebrews and the Samaritans, the Jews and the Samaritans, that was a race thing. They didn't like each other, and so this is not something new. But I see a lot of posts on social media and stuff like that. And so if it's okay with you, church family, that's how I'd like to close tonight. Is just praying for our country, praying for our church, and praying that Jesus would do a mighty work in both. So let's pray. Father, I ask for your forgiveness. God, where I have failed you, where we have failed you, God, I ask that you forgive us. I ask, Lord, that, God, there's no way that I could ever be good enough. There's no way that we could ever be good enough. And so, God, I ask for more of Jesus. In our life, Lord, where we are falling short, I ask for more of Jesus. God, in our church, where we are falling short, Lord, I ask for more of Jesus. And God, in our country where we are falling short in so many areas, Lord, I ask for more of Jesus. Because I know, God, that He is the rock. Your word teaches us that, and He is the only answer. And so, God, let us lean on Him. God, let us lean into you and grow closer to you to understand how to navigate and migrate through each situation with grace and with love, Lord. It doesn't come from us, but comes from you. God, bless our time on Sunday with Sunday morning worship and Sunday night worship, God. And I just pray that somebody will hear about Jesus. God, I pray that you will be exalted through all of it, like your word says, God. And so I pray that that's the call on our heart, the mission-mindedness of our mind, Lord, that we will just lift your name up and tell people about your Son and what He did for us. God, I love you. I thank you. I thank you for your word. I thank you for my brothers up here with me. God, I thank you for this time together. Please bless everyone that hears this now and will hear this later. We love it, and let them know that we love them and you love them above anything else. And I ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
See you online or in person this coming Sunday. Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining us.